March 16, 2020, 6:47 p.m., Brooklyn, New York. I was wiping down the counter at my coffee shop when the news alert came through. New York Governor Cuomo had just announced a mandatory shutdown of all non-essential businesses effective 8 p.m. tonight. Restaurants, bars, cafes, everything except takeout and delivery. I stood there with the cleaning rag in my hand, staring at my phone, trying to process what this meant. My coffee shop, The Grind, had been open for exactly 3 years and 2 months. We'd survived the brutal first year when most new restaurants fail. We'd built a loyal customer base. We were finally profitable. And now, with 2 hours' notice, I had to close indefinitely. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 32 years old, and 3 years ago, I'd quit my comfortable corporate marketing job to chase a dream, opening my own specialty coffee shop in Brooklyn. Everyone thought I was crazy. Stable job, good salary, benefits, and I was walking away to sell overpriced lattes in the most competitive coffee market in America. But I'd done it. I'd scraped together $120,000 from my savings, a small business loan, and money borrowed from my parents. I'd found a tiny corner space in Williamsburg, negotiated a 5-year lease, and built something I was genuinely proud of. The Grind wasn't just another coffee shop. We sourced beans directly from small farmers in Colombia and Ethiopia. We had a rotating roster of local artists whose work hung on our exposed brick walls. We hosted open mic nights on Thursdays and vinyl listening parties on Sundays. We were part of the community, and we were about to die. I called my assistant manager, Tanya. She answered on the first ring. "You saw the news?" "Yeah, we're closing in 2 hours. What do we tell customers?" I looked around the shop. There were maybe 15 people scattered across our mismatched vintage furniture, a couple on a date in the corner, 3 college students with laptops spread across a big table, an older man reading a newspaper by the window, regular faces I saw every day. "Tell them the truth," I said. "We're closed until further notice. Government mandate. Nothing we can do." For the next 2 hours, we served customers and broke the news over and over. Some people were understanding. Others were angry, as if we'd personally chosen to ruin their evening. One regular customer, David, who came in every morning for a cortado, left me a $50 tip and said, "Hang in there, man. We'll be back." At 8:02 p.m., I locked the door for what I thought would be 2 weeks, maybe 3. The governor had said temporary. The president was saying the virus would disappear like a miracle. Everyone was treating it like a weird, inconvenient blip. I didn't know I wouldn't unlock that door again for 8 months. The first week, I paid my 4 employees out of pocket, even though we were closed. It felt like the right thing to do. They had rent, bills, lives. We'd weather this together. The second week, I applied for every grant, loan, and relief program I could find. The Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, small business relief funds from the city and state. I filled out forms until my eyes crossed, uploading documents, writing statements about how COVID had impacted my business. The third week, my landlord called. Rent was due, $4,800 for the month. I asked about deferment or forgiveness given the circumstances. He was sympathetic but clear. He had his own mortgage to pay. He could give me a 2-week grace period. That was it. The fourth week, I had a conversation with my wife Jen that I never thought I'd have. "We need to talk about money," she said, sitting across from me at our kitchen table. She was an elementary school teacher, still getting paid, but her salary alone couldn't cover all our expenses, plus the shop's overhead. "I know," I said. "I'm working on the relief applications. The PPP loan should come through soon." "And if it doesn't?" I didn't answer because I didn't have an answer. We had about $18,000 in our personal savings. The shop had $22,000 in its business account. Between rent, utilities, loan payments, and our personal expenses, I was burning through about $9,000 per month with zero income. Do the math. We had maybe 4 months before we were completely broke. We might need to close the shop permanently, Jen said quietly. Cut our losses. No. The word came out harder than I intended. I put 3 years into that place. I borrowed money from my parents. I can't just give up after 1 month. It's not giving up, Marcus. It's being realistic. If this goes on for 6 months, a year, we could lose everything. The shop, our savings, maybe even the apartment. It won't go on for 6 months. The city will reopen. Things will go back to normal. Jen looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity? Frustration? I hope you're right. But as April turned into May, and May turned into June, it became clear I wasn't right. New York's infection rates were catastrophic. The city was essentially shut down. The news showed refrigerated trucks serving as makeshift morgues outside hospitals. Central Park had a field hospital. Times Square was empty. And my coffee shop sat dark and silent, accumulating dust and debt. By the end of May, I'd laid off all my employees. The PPP loan I'd desperately hoped for got stuck in processing hell. Apparently, thousands of small businesses were applying, and the system was completely overwhelmed. I got an economic injury disaster loan of $10,000, which felt like throwing a bucket of water at a forest fire. I negotiated with my landlord to pay half rent for June and July, with the understanding I'd owe the back rent eventually. My parents offered to help with money, but they were retired, and I couldn't take any more from them. I was drowning, and I was running out of options. That's when I had the idea that would either save my business or destroy what was left of it. It was June 14th, around 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I hadn't been sleeping well for months, and I was scrolling through Instagram, looking at other coffee shops and restaurants trying to figure out how anyone was surviving this. I saw a post from a bakery in Los Angeles. They'd started selling DIY baking kits online. Customers could order pre-measured ingredients with instructions to make the bakery's signature items at home. The post showed a family making cookies together, flour everywhere, everyone laughing. Something clicked. What if I could do something similar, but with coffee? Not just beans, anyone could sell beans online, but the complete grind experience in a box. Everything someone would need to make our signature drinks at home. I spent the next 3 hours sketching out the concept. The grind at home box. 12 ounces of our signature blend beans, enough for approximately 30 cups. Detailed brewing guides for different methods. One of our branded ceramic mugs. Recipe cards for our most popular drinks. A playlist. QR code. Music we played in. The shop. A handwritten note from me. Price point. $45 including shipping. It was crazy. It was desperate. It was possibly brilliant. The next morning, I called Tanya, my former assistant manager who I'd laid off 6 weeks earlier. I have an idea, I said. It might be stupid. But I need to try it. I explained the box concept. There was a pause. Marcus, that's actually kind of genius, she said. People aren't just missing the coffee. They're missing the experience, the vibe, the community. You're packaging all of that. Would you help me? I can't pay you much right now, but if this works, I'm in, she said immediately. I've been going insane at home anyway. When do we start? We started that day. I used $3,000 of my remaining business account money to order supplies. Bags for beans, custom boxes from a packaging supplier having a COVID closeout sale, ceramic mugs from a local artist who was also desperate for business. I designed everything myself using free Canva templates because I couldn't afford a graphic designer. On June 22, 2020, I posted on the Grind's Instagram account for the first time in 3 months. We're coming to you. The Grind at Home boxes available now. Everything you need to recreate your favorite coffee shop experience. Link in bio. Let's get through this together. I expected maybe 20 orders. 50 if I was lucky. I'd break even at around 60 boxes. By the end of the first day, we had 127 orders. By the end of the first week, we had 389 orders. People weren't just ordering for themselves. They were ordering for friends, family, coworkers. Someone in Manhattan ordered 10 boxes to send to their remote team. A woman in Boston ordered one because she'd visited Brooklyn once and remembered the grind. The Instagram post had gone semi-viral in the local Brooklyn community. People were sharing it, tagging friends, posting pictures of their boxes when they arrived. We were selling nostalgia and connection during a time when people desperately needed both. Tanya and I worked 16-hour days in my apartment, packing boxes, writing personal notes, coordinating shipping. Jen helped after her teaching day was done. It was chaos and exhausting, and the most hopeful I'd felt in 3 months. The first month, we did $17,450 in revenue. After costs, beans, packaging, shipping, mugs, we cleared about $8,200 in profit. Not enough to save the business long term, but enough to breathe. July was even better. $31,200 in revenue, $14,800 in profit. But here's what I didn't anticipate. The boxes were creating a problem I desperately wanted to have. We were getting overwhelmed. Demand was exceeding our capacity to pack and ship from my one-bedroom apartment. I was behind on orders. Customers were waiting 2 weeks for delivery. We needed more space, more help, more infrastructure, which meant I needed to make a decision that terrified me. On August 3rd, I walked into my dark, dusty coffee shop for the first time in 4.5 months. The espresso machine was cold. The furniture had a layer of grime. It smelled stale and sad. But in my mind, I could see something different. I could see this space transformed into a fulfillment center. The bar area could be a packing station. The seating area could be for inventory. We could triple our output. It would mean committing to this box business instead of waiting for the chance to reopen as a coffee shop. It would mean investing more money I didn't really have, into a concept that might be a temporary COVID phenomenon. But it also might be the future of the business. I called my landlord. I want to use the space, even though I can't open as a cafe. Would you be willing to adjust the rent since I'm not serving customers? To my surprise, he agreed. He reduced rent to $3,000 per month, still expensive, but manageable if the box sales continued. He was happy to have any rent coming in. A lot of his other retail tenants had abandoned their leases entirely. On August 10, 2020, I reopened The Grind. Not as a coffee shop, but as a box packing operation. I hired back Tanya full-time. I brought on 2 other former employees part-time. We set up assembly lines, organized inventory systems, streamlined our packing process. We went from packing 15 boxes a day to packing 60. August revenue, $52,300. Profit after all expenses including rent and payroll, $21,400. We were growing fast. Too fast. We were selling out of inventory within days of posting new batches. Our Instagram following had grown from 1,200 followers in March to 8,700 by the end of August. We were getting write-ups in local Brooklyn blogs and food newsletters. People loved the boxes, but they were also asking questions. When will you reopen the cafe? Will you keep doing boxes after COVID? Can I visit the shop? I didn't have answers. I was too busy packing boxes to think about the future beyond next week's orders. Then, in early September, something happened that changed everything. A food writer from Bon Appetit magazine had ordered a box in July. She'd loved it so much, she wrote a feature article about creative small businesses pivoting during COVID. The Grind got a 2-paragraph mention with a photo of our box. The article went live on September 8th. By September 10th, we had 847 new orders, and our website had crashed from traffic. We were suddenly shipping boxes to California, Texas, Florida, Oregon. Someone in London ordered 5 boxes despite the insane international shipping cost. A company in Chicago ordered 100 boxes as client gifts. September revenue, $127,600. I sat in the shop-turned-warehouse on September 30th, looking at the numbers, trying to process what had happened. 6 months ago, I thought I was watching my business die. Now I was running a thriving e-commerce operation that was making more money than the coffee shop ever had. But I was also exhausted, overwhelmed, and still not entirely sure this was sustainable. What happened when the pandemic ended? Would anyone still want boxes? Should I invest in scaling this, or should I wait to reopen as a coffee shop when restrictions lifted? I didn't know the answer, but I knew I'd survived the worst 6 months of my business life by refusing to give up and being willing to completely reinvent what the grind could be. Part 2. The Comeback. October 5th, 2020. 7:23 a.m., Brooklyn, New York. The previous section ended with me staring at September's numbers. $127,600 in revenue from shipping boxes across the country. What I didn't mention was the panic that came with those numbers. Because success, I was learning, brings its own kind of crisis. I was sitting in the shop at 7:23 a.m. I'd started coming in before everyone else just to have quiet time to think, when my phone rang. It was my bean supplier in Colombia. "Marcus, we have a problem," Carlos said. His English was accented but clear. "Your October order, it's triple your normal volume. We can fulfill it, but we need payment up front. Our cash flow is tight because of the pandemic." "How much?" $18,000. Wire transfer, before we ship. I felt my stomach drop. We had the money in the business account, barely, but spending $18,000 on beans meant we'd have almost nothing left for payroll, rent, or unexpected expenses. But if we didn't get the beans, we couldn't fulfill the orders we'd already taken. "I'll send the wire today," I said. After I hung up, I sat there feeling the weight of what had happened. 6 months ago, I was worried about surviving. Now I was worried about growing too fast. It's a better problem to have, but it's still a problem. Tanya arrived at 8 a.m. and found me building a spreadsheet. "What's that?" she asked, setting down her coffee. "Best case and worst case scenarios for the next 6 months," I said. "Best case, demand stays high, we scale up, we make real money. Worst case, demand drops, we're stuck with inventory and overhead we can't sustain." She looked at my projections. "What about medium case?" "Medium case is we maintain current levels, which means we're profitable but stretched thin constantly. It's not really sustainable long term." "So what do we do?" That was the question I'd been avoiding. What do we do? I'd been running the grind for 3 years as a coffee shop before COVID. I knew how to manage that business. But this box business was different. It was e-commerce, it was logistics, it was marketing at scale. I was making it up as I went along, and the margin for error was shrinking as we grew. Over the next 2 weeks, I made a series of decisions that would either make or break the business. Decision 1. Hire a logistics coordinator. I couldn't keep managing shipping, inventory, and vendor relationships while also packing boxes and running operations. I found Rachel, who'd been laid off from a clothing company's fulfillment center. She started on October 15th at $22 per hour, expensive for my budget, but immediately worth it. Within a week, she'd reorganized our entire packing process and cut our shipping costs by 18% by negotiating better rates with UPS. Decision 2. Invest in real equipment. I'd been packing boxes on folding tables. Rachel convinced me we needed proper shelving, packing stations, and a thermal label printer. I spent $4,200 at a restaurant supply store that was going out of business. It felt reckless to spend that much, but our efficiency improved immediately. Decision 3. Expand the product line. We'd been selling one type of box, but customers were asking for variations. Different bean origins, decaf options, larger sizes for offices. In late October, we launched 3 new box tiers. The Daily Grind, $45. Original box, 12-ounce beans. The Deep Dive, $75. 24-ounce beans, 2 mugs, premium brewing tools. The Full Experience, $125. Everything in Deep Dive plus a bag of our house-made granola, a vinyl record curated by me, and a video brewing class. The Full Experience was a gamble. $125 seemed expensive, but we sold 47 in the first week. October revenue, $184,300. Profit after all expenses, $71,200. I was making more in a month than I'd made in my best quarter as a traditional coffee shop. But I was also working 18-hour days, sleeping 4 hours a night, and watching my wife worry about my health. "You need to hire more help," Jen said one night when I came home at midnight. "You're burning out." "I know, I'm working on it." "You've been saying that for 2 months. Marcus, I'm proud of what you've built, but I'm also scared I'm going to find you collapsed on the shop floor one day." She was right. I hired 2 more part-time packers the next week. By November, we had a team of 7 people working in shifts. The shop was operating from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., packing and shipping boxes continuously. We'd processed over 2,000 orders since June. Our Instagram following hit 15,000. We were featured in a New York Times article about small businesses adapting during COVID. November revenue, $223,400. But here's what nobody tells you about rapid growth. It reveals every weakness in your operation. Our website kept crashing under traffic. We ran out of mugs and had to wait 3 weeks for a new order from our supplier. Our shipping estimates were consistently wrong because demand was so unpredictable. And then there was the question I couldn't stop thinking about. What happens when New York reopens? By December 2020, vaccines were being announced. There was real hope that by spring or summer 2021, life might return to something resembling normal, which meant restaurants and cafes might be allowed to reopen, which meant I had to decide, was the grind going to stay a box business or return to being a coffee shop? I called a meeting with my core team, Tanya, Rachel, and 2 of my original employees, James and Sophia, on December 10th. "I need to make a decision about the future," I said, "and I want your input. When the city reopens, do we go back to being a cafe? Do we stay as a box business? Do we try to do both?" Tanya spoke first. "The boxes are working. We're profitable, we're growing, and we've reached customers we never could have reached with a physical location. Why would we give that up?" "Because the shop was always about community," I said. "About creating a physical space where people could gather. The boxes are great, but they're not the same as what we had." Rachel, who'd never experienced the grind as a cafe, offered a different perspective. "What if they don't have to be the same? What if they're 2 different expressions of the same brand? Some customers want the convenience of boxes. Others will want the in-person experience. Why choose? Because doing both means double the complexity, double the overhead, double the risk," I said. "Or double the opportunity," Sophia said quietly. "Marcus, how many coffee shops in Brooklyn have a national customer base? You've built something unique. Most cafes would kill for an e-commerce channel that does $200,000 a month. The question isn't whether to keep it. The question is how to integrate it with reopening." She was right, but it scared me. Trying to operate a cafe and an e-commerce business simultaneously meant I needed more space, more staff, more capital, and more expertise in areas I didn't fully understand. That night, I did something I hadn't done since before COVID. I created a real business plan. Not a desperate survival plan, but an actual strategy for growth. The Grind 2.0. Hybrid model physical space. Reopening. Half the shop. Traditional cafe with seating, espresso bar, food. Half the shop. Visible fulfillment center. glass partition so customers can see boxes being packed. Brand the transparency as "Watch your online order come to life." E-commerce. Continue and expand box offerings. Add monthly subscription option. Leverage cafe reopening for local pickup option. Save on shipping. Revenue projections. Cafe, $30,000 per month. Conservative, assuming reduced capacity. Boxes, $200,000 per month, maintaining current trajectory. Total, $230,000 per month equals $2.76 million annually. It was ambitious. It required investing another $45,000 in renovations to split the space properly. It meant hiring at least 5 more people. It meant managing 2 completely different businesses under one roof. It was also, I believed, the only way forward that honored what the grind had been while embracing what it had become. I pitched the plan to my landlord in January 2021. To my surprise, he loved it. He agreed to extend my lease another 5 years at favorable terms. He'd watched me survive when most of his retail tenants had failed, and he wanted to keep a reliable tenant. I pitched the plan to my wife. She was cautiously supportive. "Just promise me you'll hire enough help this time. No more 18-hour days." I pitched the plan to a small business banker. She approved a $60,000 loan based on our box business revenue. The money would cover renovations, equipment, and a cash cushion. On February 1, 2021, we started renovations. For the next 6 weeks, we operated the box business out of a warehouse space I rented temporarily. It was chaos. We were packing boxes in a cold warehouse while contractors rebuilt the cafe. But we maintained our shipping schedule. March 2021. New York announced restaurants could reopen at 50% capacity starting March 19th. March 17th, 2021. Exactly 1 year and 1 day after I'd locked the doors, I stood in my transformed space. Half of it looked like the coffee shop I remembered. Exposed brick, mismatched furniture, the same espresso machine I'd closed down a year ago, now professionally deep cleaned and serviced. The other half looked like a modern fulfillment center. Clean metal shelving, organized packing stations, bags of beans stacked neatly, boxes ready to ship. And separating the two, a beautiful glass partition with gold lettering, "From our shop to your home." We reopened the cafe on March 19th, 2021. I posted on Instagram at 6 a.m. "We're back. Coffee service 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Let's rebuild this community together." By 7:30 a.m., there was a line out the door. David, my regular customer who'd left me the $50 tip a year ago, was first. "I've been waiting for this," he said, ordering his cortado. "The boxes were great, but I missed this place." That first week back, we served an average of 180 customers per day. Given we could only operate at half capacity, we were essentially at maximum. People were desperate for normalcy, for community spaces, for the rituals they'd lost. But here's what was really interesting. About 30% of our cafe customers mentioned they'd ordered our boxes during the shutdown. We hadn't lost customers. We'd kept them engaged in a different format, and now they were coming back to the physical space with even more loyalty than before. Meanwhile, the box business didn't decline when we reopened. If anything, it grew as we got more visibility. People visiting the cafe would see the fulfillment operation and order boxes for friends and family. We added local pickup options that saved customers on shipping and saved us on costs. March 2021 revenue. Cafe, $32,400. Boxes, $218,700. Total, $251,100. April brought new challenges. Managing 2 businesses simultaneously was harder than I'd anticipated. I was constantly context switching between cafe operations and e-commerce logistics. We had issues with the espresso machine breaking down. We had issues with a shipment of boxes getting lost by UPS. We had staffing challenges. Some people were great at cafe work, but not box packing, and vice versa. But we also had momentum. Food bloggers came to visit and wrote about our unique hybrid model. Customers posted photos of the glass partition showing boxes being packed. We were featured in a Shopify case study about businesses that successfully pivoted during COVID. April revenue, $267,800. By May, we'd found our rhythm. I'd hired a cafe manager, Tanya, promoted with a significant raise, and made Rachel the director of e-commerce operations. I finally had lieutenants I trusted to run the day-to-day, while I focused on strategy and growth. I also did something I hadn't done in over a year. I took a day off. Jen and I went to Prospect Park, sat on a blanket, and just existed for a few hours without me checking my phone every 5 minutes. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Surreal," I said. A year ago, I thought we were going to lose everything. The shop, our savings, maybe our apartment. And now you have something bigger than you ever imagined. She was right. The grind wasn't just a coffee shop anymore. It was a brand, a community, and a business model that had proven resilient through the worst crisis our generation had faced. June 2021. Revenue, $294,600. In July, we hit a milestone I needed to share. I posted on Instagram. 1 year ago, in July 2020, we did $31,200 in revenue from shipping boxes out of my apartment. We had 4 employees working part-time. We were surviving, barely. This month, the grind did $312,400 in revenue. We have 14 employees. We serve 200-plus customers daily in our cafe. We ship 1,000-plus boxes monthly nationwide. We're not just surviving, we're thriving. Thank you to everyone who ordered a box when we needed you. Thank you to everyone who stood in line on reopening day. Thank you for letting us be part of your life, whether in person or from afar. We shut down on March 16, 2020. We reopened March 19, 2021, completely transformed. This is what resilience looks like. This is what community makes possible. The post got 4,300 likes and 287 comments. Former customers, current customers, other small business owners facing similar struggles, all sharing their stories and support. But the metric that mattered most to me wasn't the revenue or the Instagram likes. It was this. On August 3, 2021, almost exactly 1 year after I'd walked into my dark, dusty shop and imagined it as a fulfillment center, I was able to write a check to my parents for $55,000. It was everything I'd borrowed from them, plus interest. "You don't have to pay this back," my dad said when I handed him the check. "Yes, I do," I said. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. This business exists because you took a risk on me. Twice." My mom hugged me. "We always knew you'd figure it out." But I almost hadn't. I'd come within weeks of closing permanently. I'd burned through savings, maxed out credit, laid off employees, and watched my dream nearly die. The only reason I'd survived was a combination of desperation, creativity, and a willingness to completely reimagine what my business could be. COVID-19 shut down my shop on March 16, 2020. 8 months later, by November 2020, I'd built something new that was generating $223,400 per month. 12 months later, by March 2021, I'd reopened with a hybrid model no other coffee shop in Brooklyn had attempted. 17 months later, by August 2021, I was running a business doing over $300,000 monthly, employing 14 people, and serving customers both in person and across the country. The comeback wasn't just about surviving COVID. It was about discovering that sometimes the thing you think will destroy you can actually force you to become something better than you were before. I still operate the grind today. The cafe is bustling. The box business continues to grow. We recently added a coffee bean club subscription that brings in $40,000 monthly in recurring revenue. We're opening a second location in Manhattan in January. When I lock the doors each night, I sometimes think about that moment on March 16, 2020, when I locked them thinking it was temporary. I didn't know I was closing one chapter and opening another. I didn't know that the worst thing that had ever happened to my business would ultimately force me to build something more innovative, more resilient, and more successful than I'd ever imagined. The pandemic took a lot from a lot of people. It nearly took everything from me. But it also taught me that when you can't do what you've always done, you discover what else you're capable of doing. And sometimes, what you're capable of doing is so much greater than what you'd been doing before.